everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video where, well, we're a few days off from the Timeless Children now. It feels like the dust has begun to settle on Series 12 as a series. But of course, as you guys will know, I've been doing every single week so far in Series 12. I've been doing my What Did the Fans Think video, where I look through all your comments, all your responses and reactions to each episode, and combine them into a little video, pick out some of the best ones that kind of represent a broad range of opinions into a video like this. And so, of course, that's what we're going to do today for the finale, for the Timeless Children. Probably the most divisive episode of the series, so this should be quite an interesting video, I think. Thank you for all your comments. I did have something ridiculous like 500 comments to go through or something. It was crazy, the response to this episode on my various videos, my reaction video, my review, the YouTube community post, just all those places. So thank you so much for all your comments. I'm sorry that so many I couldn't include, but obviously there's just so many, and I just wanted to try and pick out a few that cover very much a range of different opinions. Sorry if you've never been featured in this series at all through the whole of Series 12. I haven't intentionally avoided you at any point. Like, there's nobody I've been looking through and saying, oh no, I don't want to read out their comments. I've purely been scrolling through, looking at the comments, seeing which one's fit, which one's kind of a fairly commonly shared, shall we say, to try and just give you as broad a range of opinions as possible. And just to say, I do intend to do one of these videos for the whole of Series 12 as well. I'll be doing a big sort of full review of Series 12 as a whole in the next few days. So if you can, please do comment on that video when it turns up with your opinions on Series 12 as a whole. And if I get enough comments, then I might do another one of these videos for that as well. But anyway, let's stop wasting any time and let's get stuck straight into our first comment, which today comes from JMSR Enforcer 98 1993. Quite a long name there, but there we go. He says, or she, apologies, somebody says, I loved this episode. I was really nervous about the whole Timeless Child thread. However, after sitting and thinking about it, it was done really well in my opinion. And the fact that the Doctor has lived for longer than she is able to remember, and that, oh, it's law changing wasn't harped on about repeatedly. The fact the Doctor really doesn't believe it and chooses to pretty much repress it by enforcing that she really only cares about the lives of her that we've seen through the televised series is a great way to keep the 56 years of law intact. I must admit, when she was walking up to her demise, I started to well up. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't ready. The fact that the Master despises his own existence was brilliant. No wonder he was so unhinged and completely insane in the mainframe, and I thought the scene where he's actually contemplating suicide was dark. The fam, I reckon once the Doctor sorts herself out of the situation and she finds them, I reckon they'll decline to keep travelling with her. Either that or they'll die in the special. So yes, this first comment, of course, touches on the topic of discussion that I'm sure we're going to get in every single comment on this video, around the big reveal of the Doctor being the Timeless Child, the changes to the Doctor's past and the lore of the show, and everything surrounding that, which has very much split fandom straight down the middle, I think it's fair to say. This is very much a positive comment on it, which I can certainly kind of tend to agree with, where the Doctor is very much, although she kind of starting to acknowledge that this was her past, she's also really only focusing on herself in the televised show that we've seen and moving forwards as well, I think. Now, our next comment comes from Living and Thriving, great name like that, who says, this episode was absolutely bonkers and overall I enjoyed it. I wasn't too terribly surprised by the reveal that the Doctor is in fact the Timeless Child. I'd had a hunch ever since it was first brought up last season. It was still nice to see the whole story. I loved all the callbacks, both the classic and New Who, very cool. Very relieved that all the companions got home safe. I'm guessing this was goodbye for them. If so, I'm a little sad to see them go, but we all know they wouldn't be sticking around indefinitely. I agree the side masters looked a bit ridiculous, but really would you expect anything less from the Master? Incidentally, I really hope this isn't the last we see of this particular incarnation, because this guy is brilliant. My prediction for the next episode, Captain Jack shows up to break the Doctor out of prison, and then they run into the Daleks and shenanigans ensue. So yes, a nice little prediction there for the special. I think it's worth saying you mentioned that you think the companion's done. I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed in the latest press release about Revolution of the Daleks that we will be seeing all of the fan back for that story. In my opinion, they won't all carry on after that story, but I think we will see all of them again, and probably Captain Jack as well in that episode. And it's also worth mentioning about the Master as well, who I think put in a phenomenal performance. And as you say, I'd be really disappointed if we don't get to see the Sacha Dhawan Master again, because I just think he's such a brilliant take on the character that it would be a real disappointment if we don't. I feel like maybe not until at least the finale of next series, if not the following series, but I do hope that he turns up again at some point in the show. Now, our first comment from the other side of the fandom, shall we say, the other side of people's opinions, from Non-White Knight, who says, it was garbage. Admittedly well produced, recently paced, half decently acted, garbage, but it went where I and many fans feared that it would go, and for me as a fan of over 40 years is unforgivable. This episode was fan wank, and it's in purest form. I have better ideas while sitting on the toilet, and that's where this once great show has gone. Count me out from here on, the show is dead to me. So that's a pretty damning comment, and Not that I was trying to avoid including comments like this earlier in the series, but I feel like because there was only the very occasional one with this sort of point of view, I didn't feel like it represented a broad range of the fandom. But I think with this episode, there is no denying that for a pretty large portion of people, they share a very similar opinion to this, that it was a terrible decision for the show, that it did destroy the canon of the past of the programme, very much just changes way too much that the fans would want to see in the programme, making the Doctor too important, rewriting the past, changing William Hartnell's legacy, all of these things, and I can completely understand those points of view, and therefore why it has been such a kind of a controversial topic, I think, for the fandom to deal with. But yes, I'm sure we'll cover more of those sort of comments coming up, but our next comment comes from Mahoga, not quite sure how you pronounce it. Overall, it was a decent episode, but I'm really not happy about the huge retcon. It would have made more sense if the Time Child was the Master, and it wouldn't have retconned anything while keeping the same story. Just feels like a slap in the face and a big FU to Hartnell. However, with this new retcon, it does bring things to mind that we won't get touched on. It explains why Jenny was able to regenerate. Even though he was technically human, Metacrisis Doctor could still possibly regenerate because it's the Doctor's genes and not Gallifreyan altered genes. I know I said 2, but third of all, the regenerations the Doctor received on Trenzalore make no sense since it's in his genes that he doesn't have the limit at 12, and I could go for days why didn't Clara on the Great Intelligence not see anything pre-Hartnell. Got to end this, more and more I think about it, it doesn't only disrespect the original actors but also completely ignores and craps on previous writers. Need more time to digest this. So again, yes, it opens and closes various plot points from the past, shall we say. I may, at some point in the near future, do a video kind of looking at some of these things addressed here, like Time of the Doctor, like the Great Intelligence and Name of the Doctor, just various things like that, and discussing what this episode means for moments like that, the lore and the canon of things like that. Does it make any sense anymore or not? I think I will try and tackle some of that in the future, because clearly it's quite a big topic of discussion that people aren't necessarily happy with. But a more positive comment here from Jonathan Coates, who says, I really like the episode, I have no problem with the changes, it doesn't hurt existing canon in my opinion. I feel like the Time Lords were explored a lot in Classic Who. I wouldn't have minded more of them in Current Who, but even that would be open to making people angry about continuity. Now they're open to giving the Doctor the option to explore where she really came from and finding whoever these people are. Could be a cool way to go. Besides, this is Doctor Who, nothing has to be permanent. Though I feel like change has been a cornerstone of the show since the first regeneration, and I try to embrace it when it happens. Strong season. I look forward to what comes next. And I think to an extent that is quite a good kind of point, that Doctor Who is always about changing and moving on and regenerating as a programme. And so introducing new things into the show to kind of change it and mix things up a bit and just change the direction of the show a bit, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing for the programme. I think it very much can work and help to just continue to move forward as a programme. Now this comment comes from Dalek735, who says, this was a really good finale. My only issues were that I felt that Ryan wasn't very good and the Cybermen were overshadowed by the Master for the third time in the past 5 series. I really hope this isn't the last we see of Sasha's Master and the Time Lord Cybermen, as they are an incredible villain, and Jodie has the most incredible chemistry with this Master, and I need more. Chibnall really managed to stick the landing incredibly well on the whole Timeless Child storyline and used it to fix a 40-year-old plot hole from Brain and Morbius, which is great. Also the Master mixed with the Cyberium, 2 warrior races standing in the ruins of Gallifrey. I'm taking this to be the answer to who the hybrid is. Overall, I'd give this a 9. And I think this is just a great example of the fandom being so, well, divided, but also can just have so many different opinions. We've got somebody here who's loving the idea that the Doctor's the Timeless Child, loving that it sort of canonises the Morbius Doctors and fixes all of that kind of thing, and explains the hybrid idea as well in this episode with the Master and the Cybermen combining, and all the Time Lords and the Cybermen combining, which is really, really cool and interesting. And yeah, it's just great to see that such a diverse range of opinions on a story like this. Next up we have a comment from Nonny Price, who says, excellent finale, this just expands things and adds to way more possibilities for the show. The whole services to the division is very sinister. I like how Brendan's story was essentially a perception filter, and the parallel between him falling off the cliff and the Timeless Child were incredibly done. I'd really like to see future seasons after Jodie leaves focusing on these missing or forgotten incarnations of the Doctor, rather than perhaps adding new ones until Chibnall leaves maybe. Also, Koshamas has felt a bit anticlimactic. Of course his sacrifice was very heroic, but it seemed like we never quite found out who he was or who he used to be, which I thought was being hinted at. At one point I even thought he sounded like the Doctor when they were shooting down the Cybermen. So some interesting thoughts in there. I'm not so sure about the let's focus on the past incarnations of the Doctor. I feel like it's okay to kind of introduce that as an idea, but I don't feel like we should, after Jodie, almost go back in time and follow on the pre-Hartnell incarnations. I feel like that just wouldn't quite work from a narrative point of view. But it's also interesting about what you mentioned about Koshamas there. I found that quite intriguing as well. It felt like they kept on teeing up an idea that he was going to be somebody more significant than he actually was. Was he some secret old Time Lord? Was he Rassilon? Was he somebody of more importance than just the dude who sent the Siberian back to the past. That was basically what it was, and was just the keeper of the boundary. And so it just didn't feel necessarily that earned that he was going to be the guy to save everybody by sacrificing himself. It was like, I just don't really care that much about him as a character, or enough, because he's not interesting and developed enough, I found. So I think that was a little bit of a disappointment and a letdown at the end of the episode. Our next comment comes from Joe Horrell, who says, it was good for a lore-heavy episode, but I prefer arc-light episodes. Well, I think I currently prefer the Cartmel Master Plan. It's great that this new lore muddies the waters. How much of the Cartmel Master Plan can be reconciled with the new lore? Was the Matrix lying to Jodie and Sasha? Not sure why, but I guess it could. Where did the Timeless Child come from before Tectean found her? Top contenders for me are the Kasavin Realm and the Divergent Universe. So many questions which I hope only ever get resolved in obscure media. Except the looms. I don't care how convoluted the explanation. The looms need to feature on TV because they're so mad. The cyber generators look so good. Kind of disappointed none of the companions died. Sasha's Master is great fun. Also, at long last, I understand the Master. Not a fan of the Death Particle though. Do Air Machina, and I was really hoping the Cyber Regenerators cross over into Series 13. So a few interesting ideas touching on the Cartmel Master Plan and how some of that's kind of been used, some of it's been changed. Who knows, maybe we'll get an expansion on that in the future. I'm not convinced we're ever going to get looms in the show, as interesting it might be to try and introduce it as an idea. Somehow I think we're only going to get that in Long Barrow and the various expanded media, shall we say. Now next up is a comment from Carlo Cooper, who says, the Timeless Child revelation felt a little underwhelming for me. Having the Timeless Child be the Doctor and having the fugitive Doctor be Pre Hartnell both felt like unimpressive answers to our questions. I don't know what I was expecting, but mainly due to how well the season has been so far, I thought it was going to be far more out there. These just felt like really simple answers to a mystery that could have been so much more whack. I also don't feel like it's a good idea to make the Doctor special in a way that is completely out of her control. I prefer the idea that the Doctor is special because she chose to be. I tend to love the idea of the Doctor as just an ordinary Gallifreyan who over time gains wisdom and experience and learns to become the mysterious wanderer in time and space. I think that's a nice, inspiring story. But it becomes a lot less inspiring if she had already been a special being since the cradle of their civilization. I feel like this is Chibnall rejecting the idea of a Doctor with a humble origin. I feel like Chibnall, much like previous showrunners, wants a Doctor with cosmic importance. I don't like that. But the Timeless Child stuff aside, I did really like the story with the Cybermen and the Master. It was great fun, whack even, and it would have literally loved it if we could have gotten it without the baggage of the Timeless Child. So there's some very, very interesting ideas presented in there. And I think that a lot of the kind of divisiveness of this special, or this finale, is about what you feel like the Doctor should be. Whether you feel like it's right for the Doctor to be somebody of a higher importance, somebody special, rather than just a normal Gallifreyan or Time Lord or whoever, who then kind of has gained that over time. And I think to an extent, it depends how forgiving I think you can be. For me personally, like what's just been mentioned there in that comment, I feel like you can, because of the mind wipe and the starting again with Hartnell, for me, both of those things can happen kind of together. Yes, the fact is the Doctor is a more special Time Lord or a special person than anybody else, because they were the Timeless Child, they were before the Time Lords, they use the regeneration to become Time Lords. But then from the mind wipe, the beginning of the new lifespan of this Doctor, it was that this person was just a completely normal, lowly Time Lord on Gallifrey who has gradually built themselves up and gained that wisdom to become this almost special being by this point because of all they've been through in their life and the wisdom they've gained and the things they've done. And so I feel like that can still work and that can still be reconciled with them being a really special character in the first place. But I completely understand for some people that's not a good explanation and you just disagree with that. And that's totally fine. That's okay. I think it's okay to disagree and feel like some ideas work, some ideas don't. And so we come to our last couple of comments. We've got one here from OToole Finn 2001, who says, I want to start this by saying I've been a Doctor Who fan since the age of 4. I've spent my whole life taking its lessons on board and trying to make it a part of who I am. It's inspired me through my whole life and made me who I am. Who that is for other people to decide. I'm truly crushed by that last episode personally, and this is just an opinion. I just want the Doctor to be nobody special. He/she doesn't have to be a chosen one. What made the Doctor special to me is that anyone could be the Doctor, but apparently you can only do good if you were somebody important. I know this is all very dramatic, but it was really broken a show that I've loved since as long as I can remember. I don't know how many other people agree. This pretty much fits exactly in with what I was just saying, that I can completely respect and understand that point of view, that the Doctor being special does completely change things and makes it much more harder to relate to the Doctor as a character and to sort of feel like you want to follow them because you can never be like them. I know obviously we couldn't anyway because it can't be Time Lords, but within the kind of suspended disbelief of the programme that you sort of give, I think it can push it a little bit too far by making the Doctor this extra special being, But yeah, for me personally, I can kind of reconcile it with the mind wipe and starting again, essentially. And so our final comment on the Timeless Children comes from James Jarvis, who says, "This is the first episode of the Children Era that I would call a great episode. Not only was it engaging and thoroughly entertaining plot, but for the first time I didn't have to look past Jodie as the Doctor. Until this episode, she hasn't really stepped up to the mark for my liking. I even thought she had been miscast. But this episode actually changed that for me. The Matrix scene on the hill where she rages out at the Master was incredible. I saw the same Jodie that blew me away in Broadchurch. The previous scripts push her to play a 10 or 11 kind of Doctor, where I think she would be much better channeling a Series 8 12th Doctor, 9th Doctor or War Doctor. She's a brilliant dark Doctor. One last note, how perfect would it have been if she had sacrificed herself after the arc she went on in this story, and the series to some extent. I wish Chibnall had the balls to do it. But yeah, solid 8 out of 10, could go higher on rewatch. So yeah, a few interesting ideas in there. Firstly, Yaz, I kind of tend to agree that I feel like it would have worked better for her character arc if she had been the one to sacrifice herself at the end of this episode. It would just give given the ending of this story such more emotional weight than it ultimately had, I think. And it's really good mention about Jodie as well. I feel like Jodie has gone on a real improvement as a Doctor in this series, being better written, having a lot more material to work with in terms of an emotional range to her character that just wasn't really there in Series 11, I think. And I completely agree, we really saw that sort of hitting her absolute peak in terms of acting ability on the hill when she was shoving the Master on the floor. Absolutely kind of the inner rage and disbelief in her voice and her mind which just was coming out so clearly. And I completely agree. I could see there the Jodie Whittaker we saw in Broadchurch as the phenomenal actress that she was, which I don't maybe agree that she's seen miscast previously or had been as poor as some people think that she had been. But I really think that just through the series up until this point, she's had so much more to work with and she's continued developing and improving and really hit a peak in certainly the second half of this episode. So there we go, guys. That is your thoughts, your response, your reaction to the Timeless Children. It's fair to say that it's split fandom down the middle, which isn't necessarily a good thing, I don't think, sadly. I feel like it's really hard to say if there's more positive or negative comments, because reading through all your comments combined, there was so many who were like, I really love this episode, it was a real great finale, it was really cool to see this change of the law. And other people are like, no, this is terrible for the show, it completely breaks it ruins the legacy of the programme, and it just feels like there's such that wide range of opinions that I just haven't seen on any episode of Series 12 so far. So it's certainly been an interesting video to produce, but it does beg questions as to whether this finale will ultimately be remembered as a good one or not. I think it's just really hard to say. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this series of videos I've done throughout Series 12. I hope it's given you guys a good opportunity to kind of engage with me and my videos, to be able to see and really understand other people's fans' opinions. I hope this has just added something a little bit different to my channel that you guys have really enjoyed, and I've really enjoyed seeing the response to it and just getting all the comments as well. It's been really fun to make. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. As I said, I will hopefully be doing one on the Series 12 as well if you do give me all your comments on my Series 12 review, which will soon be coming onto my channel. As always, hit that like button and the subscribe button if you're new here, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. Goodbye.